Judas will be the next game from Bioshock and System Shock creator Ken Levine and the newly minted Ghost Story games. Heralded for his twisting and sometimes harrowing narratives, with Judas, Ken is pushing his storytelling a step closer to his long-term goal, making player decisions and actions actually matter. Now at this point you may be thinking, hey, I decided to harvest all those little sisters and I wanted to watch the world burn. But back in 2014 in a GDC talk, Levine spoke about his frustration with games that lock players into specific paths and how traditional narrative design was too on rails. Some games have made strides in making decisions feel more meaningful. Cyberpunk 2077 and Starfield, for example, gave players the possibility of different endings decided through a few pivotal moments. But these games also allow players to see the outcome some of their choices had on NPCs in post-credit scenes. But Ken's hoping to go further. He has suggested a concept he's calling narrative Legos, which should make players feel like they have more agency and more effect on the game world they'll be playing in. The first game to showcase this concept is Judas, originally slated to launch earlier this year. However, and maybe in no small part because of the complexity of narrative Legos, it's reportedly been stuck in development hell by Bloomberg's Jason Schreier and currently doesn't have a release date. But let's put that aside for now and talk about what Judas hopefully will be when it's finally released. In Judas, you play as the title character, an artificially printed human aboard the Mayflower, a generational ship en route to Proxima Centauri. Judas wasn't born, she was fabricated Mickey 17 style, using rare asteroid material, and she's died before. This death and rebirth cycle is core to the game's roguelike structure. You'll repeat runs, navigate a shifting world, uncover new details about your past and the ship's secrets with each attempt, not to mention plotting an uprising. So far, so familiar. Roguelikes and repeated loops are a staple of modern game design, but this is where things get interesting, because Judas uses them in tandem with the LEGO narrative system to make every run feel meaningfully different, not just mechanically, but narratively. The game will pit the player against and give them cause to ally with one of three main NPC characters: Tom, his wife Nefertiti, and their adopted daughter Hope. At the heart of the story is a tug-of-war between these leaders. Players can choose who to side with, but cannot befriend all of them at once. According to Levine, the game explores what happens when you learn about enemies and discover they are not what you assumed. With the introduction of narrative Legos, Ghost Story games are hoping to take the traditional on-rails narrative construction and swap it for a more varied story of interconnecting bricks. Whilst games in the past have given players the option to perform actions as good or evil and preference one faction or another, these so-called choices usually boil down to linear scorekeeping. Did you fry that guy's brain? -1 point for you. Ah, you saved a kitty cat. Have 2 points. This system structure led to an outcome where players could finish in different states, usually super good, super bad, or one of two steps along the way, but it was all too apparent even from early on the direction your game was headed. At their core, games like Jedi Academy and Infamous did give you choices, but they were obvious forks in the road. Even Levine's earlier games have struggled to make players feel like they were making meaningful choices. The reality is, if devs want you to feel like you're shaping an emerging world, narrative choices need to be a spaghetti junction of routes forward and not just a left or right. It's a tall order. Games with truly branching narratives are probably still a way off, hidden behind some future adaptive AI curtain and no doubt a stack of lawsuits from human writers. What Ghost Story proposes to do with Judas, though, is to create individual bricks, or Legos, that the game engine will clip together one by one as the player decides and acts on their environment. The game won't be truly procedural though, as designers handcraft each brick, be that a line of dialogue, a loot drop, a mission, or a passion, but the engine will be taught how to weave these together to form a coherent story, no matter what direction the player chooses to take. In the same way you could give a box of Legos to two different people, and whilst the bricks may be the same, the final construction could be very different. Functionally, in Judas, the system will operate via your interactions with Tom, Nefertiti, and Hope. Appearing before Judas as holograms, the Big Three's attitudes will change based on your actions. Behave in a way Tom approves of, and he may reward you by unlocking a shortcut. Frustrate Hope in ways you didn't even know were possible, and she may just turn the ship's security systems on you. The driving factor behind how the stars feel about you will depend on their goals and passions, some obvious and some less so. It won't be surprising to hear Shadow of Mordor's Nemesis system heavily influenced Levine. He praised its meta-narrative in which emergent stories arose between the player and the orcs that inhabited the world. He's also cited systemic games like Civilization and XCOM, which created emergent narratives from rules rather than scripts, as inspirations. These games don't rely on authored cutscenes to produce stories, Instead, the drama emerges from the systems. In his GDC presentation, he also referenced open-world games like Skyrim and Dark Cloud, where players interact with factions and villages that have their own passions and alignments. So, what's next? The main areas of concern for Judas outside of its development woes probably lie in execution. Whilst the concept of combining plot beats with outcomes into clippable bricks certainly sounds intriguing, it may still have the problem of feeling less personal. The best narrative games have to offer is to take us on a journey and to beat the crap out of our emotions along the way. And whilst Judas is shaping up to have a compelling plotline, trying to systemize emotional storytelling hasn't had the best track record. It's often why RPGs can feel a bit impersonal even when they're technically brilliant. Whilst Judas is using tried and tested crowd pleasers to get off the ground, it's the novel concept of narrative Lego design that may really shine for Ken Levine and Ghost Story Games. And even if it's not the be-all and end-all of branching narratives, it certainly sounds like a brick on the right path. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.